Hello and welcome again to Mama Drew How To. Today we are going to be making eggplant pizza. Now you may wonder, what is eggplant? Why would I want to use it to make a pizza? Well, this is an eggplant. This is kind of a large one, and actually the plants they grow on aren't much bigger than this eggplant. It's really cool. It's a fun challenge to grow up north because if it gets below 50 degrees you have to go out in the garden and cover them up. And they are an excellent source of potassium, which is important for your heart health. So if you don't like bananas, eat eggplant. They're very mild flavor, and you can season them to be pretty much whatever you want. One of my favorite things to make is eggplant meatballs, which are fantastic. I'll just show you that sometime. But when you're trying to avoid and cutting down on your carbs, trying to eat healthier, you can't do much better than eggplant because eggplant's pretty low in carbs. It's got great iron, it has beta carotene, so if you don't like carrots, eat your eggplant. And it's a really good, neat recipe. And even my husband, who is not a big fan of the, trying to go keto and low carb diet, even he likes this. So I'll show you how to make it. Okay, so first we're going to peel the eggplant. I like to start off, I just take off the leaves here, like so. These are so cool, they sound cool. Okay, not playing around. You cut off the end. You don't really have to cut, I'll cut out that little part there, but otherwise I'm not going to worry about that. But I do, now you can cook your eggplant with the skin on. That is perfectly safe and fine to do. I am not doing that because I'm not going to be grilling this eggplant so much. I'm going to be baking it, and don't really like the way the skin gets when I bake it. So I'm just going to go ahead and peel it. Little parts like that I'm just going to leave. And yes, now I grew up in a home where you always used like a carrot peeler or a vegetable peeler to peel everything. And you can do that with an eggplant as well. My peeler just is not available, so I'm doing this. And sometimes I find it's faster to do your eggplant this way anyway. Just make sure it's a sharp knife. You notice I'm cutting away from myself. Now, the thing with eggplant is some people think it has a bitter taste. So if you've ever had eggplant and you think, man, that was so bitter, I don't want to eat it. Well, if you thought that, then you're probably not watching this video. But if you have a friend who says, oh, eggplant, it's so bitter, it really isn't. I have never known it to be bitter. But there is a trick that you can do to cut down the risk of it tasting bitter. And that is, you want to, what's causing that flavor are the seeds inside the eggplant. I'm going to show you those in just a minute here. Okay, so there's no right or wrong way to slice an eggplant. Some people cut it widthwise, some people cut it lengthwise. I've done it both ways. I'm going to go ahead and do widthwise so I have circles just because I think it's going to be easier for storing the leftovers. But if you notice, do you see these little, I don't know how well you can see them, but in here, they're these little seed things. That is what, if you have such a sensitive palate that you think it tastes bitter, which as I said, I have never noticed, then that's what's causing that taste. It's the seeds in the eggplant. So there is a trick to preventing that from happening, and I am going to show that to you here in just a moment. This is the coolest trick. I'm taking a colander. It's important to have something that has holes in it for it to drain, for what we're going to do. And I'm putting it on top of a plate here. And then I'm going to take my eggplant slices here, and you do about a layer there. And then you take some salt. I like to use coarse salt, like the kosher salt. I like to use kosher salt in cooking anyway. It's really good. And you just do another layer. You put some more salt on. This salt is actually going to help the juices of the seeds. See how they're already turning kind of brown? It's going to help them weep out the bitter juice. So just going to do this here. One more layer and then we are done. And then, and this is why I don't normally do this, because usually I'm making supper just in time for supper, but you let it set for 30 minutes. So in 30 minutes, you're going to come back and I am going to show you on this plate the juice that's seeped out. It is so cool. All right, see you in 30 minutes. Okay, so while our eggplant is sitting, I was going to go ahead and start chopping up my vegetables and sauteing them for the pizza, and then I realized, wait a sec, this isn't one of those picture-perfect kitchen shows where everything's just ready to go. This is to show you the whole thing from start to finish. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how I chop up the vegetables and stuff for the little mini pizzas. So come on down here to the counter with me. There we go. All right. So I like mushrooms, but there's something very important I want you to see here. Now these are the mushrooms as they are in the container. Do you see these dark flecks here? This is very important. Mushrooms grow best in manure. Those little flecks are mushroom soil. Do not eat a raw mushroom out of the garden or out of the container from the store. Always carefully wash it off, and then wash your hands afterwards so you don't contaminate your cross-contaminate with E. coli on your food. So mushroom soil, good for growing things, bad for the insides of your stomach. So, all right, let's look back down here at the clean mushrooms. And the way I do it, and you know, you can do it where you use the stem. I like to take my stems right out. That's just how I do it. But again, as long as you just cut off the end, you're golden. You can use the whole thing if you want. And then you take your knife. If you're really good, you can hold it like that rather than this. There's a lot less tendency to cut your fingers. And just slice them however, oh, there goes the tea kettle. Slice them however thick you want them. And remember, we're going to be sauteing these. Now, I'm going to be using this skillet. And I'm one of those people that doesn't really measure when they cook. I measure when I bake. Measuring is very important for baking because it's a scientific formula. It's what a recipe is. But with cooking, I'm just one of those little this, little that people. So I just put olive oil in my pan. Normally I would let it heat up and get going, but actually I think I could move these mushrooms off to the side on this cutting board. Yeah, there we go. So the nice thing about doing mini pizzas is that if your significant other doesn't like mushrooms, as mine does not, everyone has their own mini pizza. You can put it on yours and not on theirs. Works great. All right. I am not too gifted. I was told the knuckle technique when I was little, and I never quite learned it. So I just have to be very careful when I slice. Okay, so there are the mushrooms. Now, onion. Raw onion is fine on a pizza, but sometimes it can be a little sharp. So I like to saute my onion too. This is how I peel an onion. Now, if you take a nutrition course in college, you will very likely have to watch a video about how to do this. So here's a head start for you. So you cut it in half, peel it off. You can cut off that little end if you want. And then, this is a cool thing, you leave it attached, cut in like this, and then it's the easiest thing to dice it up. Now, I know that onions get a bad rap for making people cry, and that's because they do. But, and I learned this from my nephew, if you leave your onions in the refrigerator so they're nice and cold, you're not going to have that crying. Like right now, I'm breathing it in. I'm not crying at all. See? No more tears. All right. Now, last thing I'm going to do here, let me get these over there in the skillet. The last thing I'm going to do is my pepper. So I like to use peppers that aren't green peppers, only because green peppers, technically, while they are popular, and you see them on many a vegetable tray at parties, they're actually raw. And so sometimes when people say, oh, I can't eat peppers because it just upsets my stomach, well, it's probably because they're eating green peppers, and the green peppers are upsetting their stomach. So try, if you're going to do raw peppers, get an orange or yellow or red, get them when they're on sale. And this is how I dice it. You know what? I can't believe my dog is not out here. She loves eating peppers. And normally she'd be out here and she would take a whole slice off by herself and eat it. It's, you may have seen my dog, little dog, in How to Wash Your Dog video. That's the one that loves to eat. Well, if she would eat onion if I would let her. But onions, just so you know, can make dogs anemic. I know that because I used to work at a vet clinic. So don't feed your dog onion. A little bit more pepper here. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and get this started in the skillet. I will show you that in just a minute. And I'm cooking the peppers and onions together. For one thing, they have about equal softness or water content to them, whereas the mushrooms would cook much faster. And for another thing, Brian doesn't like mushrooms. So if I cook the mushrooms in here, then I'm going to have to pick them out when I'm putting toppings on the pizzas. So it's just a way of being nice. Now you could put some spices on your vegetables now. I'm going to wait and do that and put it on my crust, my eggplant. So you just toss it around like this until it's lightly browned. Make sure you're using the right tools. I could use a wooden utensil to move around on this non-stick skillet, or I can use a silicone tool, which is what I'm using here. That's heat resistant up to, I think, 400 degrees. What you don't want to use is plain metal, because it will scratch your pan, and then your non-stick surface will no longer be there, and you will have to get a new skillet, because you're also running the risk then of fragments breaking off in your food when you're cooking. You don't want that. So use wooden, use silicone. Now, if you're using wooden utensils, don't be using it with raw meat and chicken, because the bacteria will get in the wood and will stay in there no matter how carefully you clean it, and then you'll wind up with food poisoning if you're not careful. So maybe just get some silicone rubber scrapers and de-set with that. And these are the mushrooms. Now, I'm using the leftover olive oil from doing the onions and peppers, but you could, if you want a real taste treat, just do a side dish sometime of mushrooms, cooked in some butter in the skillet. Oh, that is good. Or, if you want to do the Chronicles of Narnia breakfast, you can make one like they made in The Horse and His Boy, and have a breakfast of bacon and eggs and mushrooms. Sometimes I do that just to celebrate C.S. Lewis. But anyway, this is just all you do. And again, just kind of toss it around until they're browned the way you want them. And then they'll be ready to put on your pizza. All right, so our 30 minutes is up. I want you to look here and see how it's glistening. It's still kind of, you can still see some moisture coming out of the eggplant. We're going to rinse this all off. But I want you to see on the plate. Now this one didn't have a lot of drainage. But see that brown that's just from the eggplant juice around the seeds. Normally, I mean, I've had much more before, but you can still see it's still kind of collecting on here. We're going to rinse it off, and then we'll go ahead and get to the fun part of making our pizzas. So now we're going to put the eggplant slices on a cookie sheet, and we're going to get them kind of crisped a little bit before we start putting on sauce and toppings. So there are a couple ways of doing this. You could use aluminum foil. That's a great standby for lining your cookie sheets. Or, and this is what I'm going to use, you can use parchment paper. It's a little tricky because you are going to have some water coming from the eggplant, but with parchment paper I don't have to do any spraying of the foil so that the eggplant doesn't stick to the foil. And also I'm going to be using tomato sauce, and if tomato sauce gets on aluminum foil, it will soak in the aluminum, and I don't want to be eating extra aluminum, or really much of any aluminum. So I'm going to stick with my parchment paper. So come on down and we'll take a look here. Go like that. Boop. It rolls up a little bit, but just start slapping on your eggplant and you'll be fine. Just gonna put my, boy, this was a really big eggplant, I must say. They aren't normally this large. Okay, so I have my olive oil. I have a little dish here. I'm just going to put a little bit in there, and I'm going to brush my, where is my brush here? Hang on. Here we go. I'm going to brush the olive oil onto the eggplant. Now, what if, this is, again, another, I don't know, Dollar Tree, Walmart, one of those places. You can find those there. It's a silicone brush, so I could use this to brush it on something hot if I wanted to. But what if you don't have time to run out and look for one of these brushes and you don't want to do it? Well, then the other option is you can take either really clean fingers, which is kind of gross if you're cooking for other people, or dip a paper towel in it, and then you can kind of just, let's see if I can get this over here where you can see better. You can brush it on like that. But it's not as efficient because you got the oil soaking into the paper towel. So I'm going to take the easy way and go back to my brush. And do it like that. Now, here's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to take some spices. I'm going to take my garlic powder. And again, I told you, I'm one of those people. I don't measure things. So it's all in the wrist. You just get nice loose wrist action and just kind of, I like garlic, so I'm putting in garlic powder, not garlic salt, because I'm going to have cheese on this. That's going to give added salt to this. You don't want to over salt it. I'm also doing Italian seasoning, and just kind of sprinkle that on. Be sure to watch the video I'm going to be putting up on how to preserve your fresh herbs so you can have them later in the winter, so you're not stuck with just doing dry herbs all the time. But tonight, for sake of speed, that's what we're doing. Now I'm flipping this because if I don't, this side has the oil on it, so it's not going to be as prone to stick to the paper, because I'm going to have to flip this. And then I'm just going to do the same thing on top here. And then this whole part is all done. We're going to put this in a 350 degree oven. We want to open your oven first to make sure you don't have anything in it, because otherwise you might be burning something before you even get your oven fully ready to use. And I realize there are probably most of you out there that know this stuff and already looking at your ovens before you turn them on, but I'm really making this video for someone who's never done any cooking before. And honestly, We can all of us, always learn new tips. I learned a tip about the onion from my nephew, and I know I'm going to continue to learn more things as the years go by, because I like to be a lifelong learner. Okay, so we're going to put this in the oven, just like this, for 15 minutes. Then I'm going to pull it out, we're going to flip it over, we're going to do it for another 15 minutes. Okay, so our eggplant have gone in on each side for 15 minutes at 350 degrees, and now we can put the toppings on them. So over here I have my spaghetti sauce and my cheese and pepperoni and my other toppings. So all you really do is you just put it on, and honestly, I mean, I've done this with, instead of using red sauce, I used ranch dressing and had spinach on mine that I had pre-sauteed, which is really, really good. But really, and my hands are clean, by the way, or I would not just be sticking my fingers in the food like that. Always maintain hygiene. And then put on your cheese. You can really do it in whatever order you want to do it in. It's up to you. The food is not meant to be stressful. It's meant to be fun and enjoyable. It's nourishing to your life, so enjoy it. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and do all my little pizzas here, and then we'll put it in the oven for probably about 10 minutes, just enough for things to melt and the sauce to heat up. And there we have it, our personal eggplant, low-carb, all yummy pizzas. Perfect. So, this was another episode of Mama Drew How To. Be sure to like and subscribe to my channel, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Look both ways before you cross the street. Stay safe.